Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Confidence to Homeschool podcast. I recently had a message sent over to me about how in the world to help your kids learn to love reading. I've got several things to say on it, so if you are ready to hear how to help your kiddo love to learn to read, stay tuned. Welcome to the Confidence to Homeschool podcast with me, Kelsey Shalane. I'm a lover of all things Jesus, an exceptional wife to an exceptional husband, and a homeschooling mama of 4. Together, let's trade in those insecurities and questions of if you can homeschool for the confidence that homeschooling was the right decision for you. Through simple homeschooling techniques, growth in God, and small mindset shifts, we have the power to change generations and set our kids' hearts tuned to the Lord and a love of learning. So grab your lukewarm coffee, because who gets to drink it hot anyways, and let's shave off years of that how to homeschool learning curve. All right, so I had a good friend message me the other day, and she was asking me, how in the world do you teach your kids to learn to love reading? I will say that her kids are not homeschooled, but I think this pertains to homeschooled children as well. I do think whenever they are in a school that is pushing them to continue to read, even when they absolutely think in their own mind that they hate to read, that this could make things a little bit more difficult. But I do think there are ways to make reading fun or to help their brain to understand that reading isn't the most terrible thing in the entire world. So let's dive right in. The first thing I want to say is it's hard to learn to love something that's really difficult for you. So if you think about it as an adult, and maybe this is just me, maybe this is just my ADHD brain, but if something's really hard for me, I don't necessarily really want to do it. And if there is something that there's a whole bunch of steps in, and it just is taking me forever, or in my brain it doesn't seem like it's easy, my first go-to is I just won't. If I'm overwhelmed, my first inclination is no, I'm not doing it. So I have learned with my ADHD brain, and probably with kids as well, probably with most people as well, I guess I would say, when you hit a place of overwhelm, if you are somebody who hits a place of overwhelm and then chooses to do nothing, then keep that in mind whenever you're teaching your kids to read. If they are overwhelmed by reading, they don't feel confident in it, they're not sure that they're good enough to read, then of course they're not going to love and enjoy reading, because guess what? It's hard for them, and it's not fun to do things that are hard, especially if school in general is hard for them and they feel like they're failing all over the place. Then with that, the first thing I would say is we got to figure out how to put some confidence back into them, and really just build their confidence up. You can start bringing out all of the things that they are doing well, even if it has nothing to do with school. Make sure that you're telling them what you're impressed by. Make sure that you're pointing out, I really loved the way that you loved your sister in that moment. Or, whatever it is that your child, sit back and watch them and see what lights them up whenever you are noticing the positive things that they do. Because really building confidence is the key to most things in learning. And unfortunately, in my opinion, public schools are really good at bringing that down. There's a lot of confidence killing throughout schools, everybody just needs to do what they're told to do, and you're not allowed to be who it is that you are, who you want to be, and all of these things, so all of this is coming in. You have to think about the fact that it takes confidence to do anything. Mindset is more important than any skill you could possibly come up with. And I say that I have Addison, who really struggled with reading, and now she's an excellent, wonderful reader. I have started with Asher, who is 6, and he is my one that is exactly like me, and his first thought process is, I don't know how, and he stops and he freezes, and you just can't make him do it. And so when I started teaching him to read, it was very much a practice of patience and a reminder to tell him over and over again, you can do this, and it's okay if you're wrong. It's totally and completely fine if you tell me the incorrect sound, but I need to know what your brain is telling you that sound is so that I can help it correct it if it's wrong. But it's okay to be wrong. And I think allowing them to be okay in being wrong is literally so much of the battle. But that's a whole nother episode. I literally have a episode queued up for you guys that is all over allowing your kids to fail. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail yet. I'm going to bring it back, and we're going to go back into reading. But I just want you to be thinking about the mindset part of reading, because everything in this world goes back to mindset. Like, we always go back to mindset. And I will always and forever take you back to mindset because it is so important. So just remember, if it's hard, they probably don't want to do it. So here's a couple of tips for making those things less difficult or more enticing. The first one is model the behavior on how you are reading. So if you're reading on your phone, you can read out to them or read out loud to them if it's something that there's interesting. Whenever they ask a question to you and you don't know the answer to it, look it up and read the answer out loud so that they are seeing that you are reading also and that you are still learning things as well. And then that kind of gives them the ability to be like, oh, I can find that answer myself. And once I know how to read it, I can read it myself. It gives those little beginners, those beginner readers, the opportunity to see why reading is important. One, but 2, it gives them the modeled behavior that they are capable of, going and figuring out answers by themselves. If they are looking up stuff all day long, if they are somebody who is like with a bunch of questions and look stuff up all day long, my daughter does not sit down and read books as often. But she reads all day long. She wants to know answer to a question, she looks it up and she reads. And I think that we also need to remember that just because they're not reading the way that we want them to read, they're still reading. They're not reading the books that you're wanting them to read. Whatever it is on what your expectation and your thought process on their reading looks like, you may have to think about that and adjust some expectations, or work together, you and your child, on what those expectations can look like. Okay, you would like to read a comic book? Totally and completely fine. I would like you to also read a chapter of of this book with me, and then let's chat or whatever, I do find that who in the world wants to be quizzed over what they've read? I think that that's one of the places that public schools really have a hard time with, is they do not allow you to read for the love of reading. They want to know, okay, you read this book, answer all of these questions and all of the things. I mean, it's a great way to kill a love of reading, to make them be able to have to remember every single part of this book, and having to regurgitate the information back to you. So I get where they are going on the public school system as far as they need to know that they actually read the book and that they can read those things. I understand the reason that they do testing and all of that. But on the flip side of that, whenever you're in a more intimate, more intimate schooling capacity with your kids, you can just take some of that pressure off and allow it to be light, Okay, so model the behavior and show them how often you're reading. I mean, I read all day, every single day. A lot of times it's on my phone, but if I have a question, you best believe I'm going to find the answer to it. And if I find something super cool, you best believe I'm also going to tell my kids about it, you know? This next one is pretty genius, if you ask me, because it's kind of sneaky and the kids don't really know that it's going on. So I have started adding the closed captions. I know exactly what was said on the TV, and with 4 kids running around and a dog and a cat and a husband and a fish tank and all of the things going on in my life, there is a lot of noise happening on a regular basis. Now, it makes my husband insane because he cannot look away from the closed captions. But guess what? Neither can the kids. So they are seeing words nonstop in front of themselves. And their brain is trying to read those words nonstop, regardless of whether they can or not. Their brain is still seeing it. It's still familiarizing them with words. Not only are they seeing the words, but they're hearing it as well. So even if they don't know how to read, they're still reading and seeing the words at the same time. So in my opinion, that's one of the most brilliant hacks ever, is to turn your closed captions on the television, and it will force them to be a better reader whether they like it or not. You may have to put your foot down and tell them not to turn it off, but at the same time, give them extra TV time if that's the case. Like if you limit their television, keep their TV on for extra 30 minutes if they are reading closed captions. You know, like whatever it is that you need to do in order to make it a better time for them. Okay, so the next one kind of goes hand in hand, audiobooks. Find a good audiobook that you all enjoy and can get lost in so that they see the world of reading in a different light. It allows them to effortlessly get into the story so they realize that books aren't a bad thing. Like if you give them the opportunity to start using their imagination again, and they have the ability to get lost in a book and they are like, oh my goodness, what happens next? And they are starting to realize that audiobooks are really not that bad. They may just start consuming books like crazy. You never know. Like that may be their jam. Addison has a book club we've talked about once or a couple of times before. And she will read the book and then, because it's 4 chapters that she reads per week. So she reads the book first, and then when it comes closer to her book club, like on Mondays, she will listen to all of the chapters again while she's hanging out, doing whatever. And that way she's seeing it and she's hearing it, both. But you can do an audiobook without the book completely and just do the audiobook, or you can do the audiobook and the book together. That way they're seeing it and they're reading it at the same time. You can do them the way Addison is doing them, one and then the other. Whatever it is that you are needing. We talked a little bit about right brain in a different episode, and right brain learners. And those learners are more creative and they just are more, they have just a different way of thinking about things, you know? And audiobooks are great for those kinds of learners. They help them put together things differently. I definitely would rather listen to an audiobook than to have to sit down and read a book, because if I get distracted and I have to look up, then I have to look back down and I find my place in my book. And that's just a really hard thing for me. So I would much prefer to listen to an audiobook, but that's just the way that my brain works. So if they are reading, allow them to listen to the book while reading, and you guys take the time to take the time to connect with them after that chapter or after they have completed their reading assignment that they're working on. Make sure that you're being a part of that reading assignment with them, and just not like in a quizzing kind of manner, but like, what do you like about the book? What do you dislike about the book? Who's your favorite character? Like, not questions like, what was the plot? What was the rising action? Not questions like, okay, now tell me what happened, but questions that you can like connect with them over, because it's so fun when you get to connect with them over whatever it is that they're reading. I fully love when Addison comes to me and she's like, oh, this is what happened in the book today. And she starts telling me and we can have conversations about it. Like, I absolutely love to be able to connect with her over what she's reading. And I love the fact that she feels like she wants to come to me and have those conversations. So that's what I would say. Audiobooks. We've kind of went over 5, spending time figuring out what they love and read that. So if you have a kid that loves animals and loves all things about animals, then pick up some animal books and just read those. If that's not part of your curriculum, who cares? Just read some animal books. If they love engineering, then pick up some books like that and let them read. Let them read out loud to you. You read out loud to them. It is so important for them to hear your voice reading. And then you're also, as we said in the beginning, modeling the behavior of reading. So there's so many options. The last and final option is read together. So she reads a page, you read a page. He reads a paragraph, you read a paragraph. They read a sentence, you read a whole page. Like, wherever they are in their journey of reading, the point is to not make it hard. The point is to make it fun. And the more fun you can make something instead of difficult, the more they're going to learn it. Period. End of story. Done. That is it. That is the key right there, is to make it fun to where their brain is not turned off by the action that you are trying to get them to complete. That's it. Plain and simple. Make life more fun. Things are all about connections with your kids, all the things, so that is it. I hope that this gives you some tips and insights into how in the world to make things more enjoyable while reading. I hope this gave you a couple of thoughts, and you can take 1 or 2 of them away to make your life easier. Have the best day. Hey friend, thanks again for joining me today on your journey to the confidence to homeschool. I hope this podcast blessed you with one more tool of success. If it did, please scroll down to the bottom of your screen and leave me a review. Share it with a friend. Just remember, confidence in anything takes practice, so let's grow.